Not a lot of time.
What are we going to sing about? Is it going to be...
Guys, quiet. Alright, so today, we're going to talk about solving quadratics using the quadratic equation. Right, when we talked about solving quadratics on day one, normally we either factored, or we got that squared piece by itself, took the square root, right? How many answers did we end with? Two, right? 99% of the time you should get two answers. Same thing, quadratic formula. And then we're talking about the discriminant to do the exact same thing we did in our graphing calculators the other day. We saw does it have two real, one real, or two complex. That's what we're doing today. So 7x squared plus 13x minus 10 equals 0. I tell you to solve that. And you say, well, I don't want to factor that. That's perfectly okay because we have what we call the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You do not need to memorize that for the test. It will be given to you. All you need to do is know how to use it. Okay? So instead of factoring this and solving each piece, what you're going to do is you're going to plug in your a value, you're going to plug in your b value, and you're going to plug in your c value, and you're going to solve it out. Now, there are a couple different ways to remember the quadratic formula. Starting with this one, which is this song.
Hey guys, this is Julie with Mahalo.com, and I have a huge tip to help you remember the quadratic equation. Now, every once in a while, you're going to have a teacher that's going to put this on the test, and they're going to say, you need to have it memorized.
That's the
so how are you
formula
going
we
to
just saw.
You've got to song. It's a song everybody knows. So we're going to sing this equation to the tune of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Now I'm going to start with,
she can sing the
I
first
am not
time.
a singer. I'm a math teacher.
Second time, you guys all better sing it. You
sing
stand up in front and
I'm going to
sing
sing
it
it
for
once for
everybody.
you, and then I'm going to ask you to sing it along with me.
Borrow, you can do it since you
X equals opposite b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. It's important to know the word is opposite, not negative b.
It's negative.
Because sometimes when you're plugging in a b, you need the opposite side. So we use the word opposite there.
Ready?
Let's try it again.
Here we
You're
go.
going to sing with me this time. No, seriously, we're going to sing. I know nobody's around. Sing it with me. Remember, it's row, row, row your boat. Here we go. X equals opposite b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Learn this, you'll never forget it. Thanks for working with me today. If you like what you saw, more information about related topics, click on the...
That was the lesser of the two popular versions. So last year, this was the more popular version that people used to remember it. Like I said, you don't need to, but it's always helpful that we have to flip back and forth to find
Right,
it.
so this video is about.
But this is the way kids enjoyed more last
This
year.
video is about.
We'll watch it
a
twice.
really awesome way to remember the quadratic formula.
I think most of you like it if you can hear it.
Years ago, and I've never forgotten it, so I thought that I would share it with you. Ready for this?
No.
A negative boy couldn't decide whether he should go to a radical party, but being square, he decided not to go. He missed out on 4 awesome chicks. The party was not over until 2 a.m. Boom.
I'm gonna remember this.
Okay, we're gonna play it one more time. That's all we have.
This video is about a
Okay,
really awesome way
listen.
to remember the quadratic formula that I learned from my professor a couple years ago, and I've never forgotten it, so I thought that I would share it with you. Ready for this? A negative boy couldn't decide whether he should go to a radical party, but being square, he decided not to go. He missed out on 4 awesome chicks. The party was not over until 2 a.m. Boom. Quadratic formula.
So that was actually the most popular version that students saw last year.
Please.
Please subscribe.
I do believe both of those videos are linked to Schoology, so if you want to watch them again, you can. If not, tell me and I'll put them up there. But like I said, that'll be given to you on the test. So you don't need to memorize it, but you never know. So, solving here. 4x squared minus 13x plus 9. Right? Do you want to factor that to solve it? Probably not, right? So, let's use the quadratic formula instead. So what we're going to do, what's my a value in this problem? 4. 4, good. What's my b value?
13.
Negative 13. What's my c value? 9. 9, good. So all we're going to do is we're going to plug them in. Now notice, What do you notice with this equation? It is in what form? Standard form. It needs to be standard form to use this quadratic equation, and it needs to be equal to 0. I know that's part of standard form, but it must be equal to 0 to use quadratic formula. So all we're going to do is we're going to plug these values in. X equals negative 13 gives us a positive 13, plus or minus the square root of negative 13 squared, minus 4 times 9, all over 2 times 4. Negative b plus or minus the square root, b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. All we do is we plug our values in. And from here, guys, once you plug them in, it's all solving. Now, have I seen people try and put this whole thing in their calculator? Yes. And it works if you do it correctly, but is it very easy to make a mistake putting your calculator like this? Yeah. So, I would suggest at least solving it down a little bit before you put the whole thing in there. Okay? So if I do this, the first thing I'm going to do is what's under the radical. Negative 13 squared is 169 minus 4 times 4 times 9.
16
What's it? 144. Thank you, Evan. Over 2 times 4 is 8. Oh, I heard someone say, how do you put plus minus in a calculator? You don't. You do one of them as plus, and then your second answer comes from doing the other one as minus. That's how you get two answers. Okay? We should still have two answers for these. So x equals 13 plus or minus the square root of 25 over 8.
I'm gonna figure out.
Am I going too fast or are we good?
No.
Okay, square root of 25 is 5, right?
Yeah.
So I get 13 plus or minus 5 over 8. From this point, I can split it up and I can solve it pretty easily. Right? I'm going to do 13 plus 5 over 8, and I'm going to do 13 minus 5 over 8. You can put them in your calculator, you can do them in your head, whatever you need to do. 13 plus 5 is 18 over 8, which reduces to 9 over 4, or 2.25. Right? Okay, the second one, 13 minus 5, gets me 8 over 8, which equals 1. So I still get two answers. You should still get two answers using quadratic formula. Alright? I always forget what time we're at. Okay.
Yeah, you got one reminder.
Oh, alright, I have a meeting here. That's all right. Okay. Let's do second two. What's different about these two? What's wrong?
They don't equal 0.
They don't equal 0. You need to make them equal 0 before we can do anything. Okay.
Plus 3.
So here's what we're going to do this first one here. We're going to set the second one up. We're going to talk about it, but we're not going to actually do it. So I want to save some time. Okay? So 9x squared plus 2x plus 3 equals 0. So let's go ahead. Let's do the quadratic formula. Oh, a negative boy couldn't decide if we want to go to a radical party.
No.
Being squared, he decided not to go. Missed out on 4 awesome chicks. Party wasn't over until 2 a.m. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So once again, guys, do us under that radical first. Do this part first. Negative 2 plus or minus the square root 4 minus.
It's going to be
0.
108.
32.
908.
How do I
What?
108
Oh, okay.
over 18.
Would just the 4 distribute to both of them?
What's that?
Would the 4 distribute to both?
Well, it's 4 times 9 times 3. Okay?
Can't see.
So 4 minus 108 gets me negative 104 over 18. Well, negative 104, that's not a nice number to take the square root of, is it? No, so we're not just going to take the square root of it, but we need to simplify our radicals. So I'm going to do it off to the side.
Imaginary numbers.
Okay, when I take the square root of a negative, what happens?
It becomes imaginary.
We get an I, right? So I'm going to change this into square root of I squared square root of 104. Because remember, negative 1, negative 1 equals I squared. Okay. Well, 104, is that a perfect square? No. Is there a perfect square that goes into it though?
Yeah, 4.
Or I squared equals I. I get square root of 4 times the square root of 26?
Yeah.
26. And what's the square root of 4?
2.
2. So this becomes 2I square root of 26. So instead of writing negative 104, I'm going to change it to negative 2 plus or minus 2I square root of 26 over 18. Now, we're going to get some ugly answers. Like, we are one step away from an answer here. There's one last thing we need to do.
Get rid of the I.
Not get rid of the I. That's part of our answer.
Get rid of the negative.
Hold on. Let's see. Hey guys, if I wrote this on the board, what would you do to that?
Simplify.
Simplify it, right? You take a 2 out of both, right? If I wrote,
Oh no, that's 18.
if I wrote this on the board, what would you do to it? You'd simplify it. So this
I over 9. I, right?
is the same thing as what we have written up there, just not split up. So if I can break both of those down, I can take a 2 out of all of these pieces. And it becomes negative 1 plus or minus I square root of 26 over 9. That's my answer. That's as simplified as it gets. Right? So sometimes this quadratic formula is going to give us some ugly numbers. That's perfectly okay. Alright? That's perfectly fine. So simplify as much as you can. And that's your answer. Any questions on that? Okay, let's set the third one up. I just want to talk about it for a second. And then we will move on. I'm not actually going to do it. Okay, this one's not equal to 0 as well. What should I do?
Make it equal.
Make it equal 0. How should I do that?
Yeah, plus 6x and yeah, plus 8.
Perfect. That's exactly what my brain would go to. Is anyone's brain tell them to subtract x squared? That's perfectly okay if you're going to use quadratic formula. However, in my brain, I always want to keep a positive x squared, and I'll show you why. If I add 6x and I add 8, x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 0. Hey, what could I do to that?
You could do it into.
What's that vocab word we use? Instead of using quadratic formula, I could factor. Right? On a test, if you have this problem and use quadratic formula, perfectly okay. It'll take you an extra 5 minutes compared to everybody else. Not 5 minutes, I'm exaggerating here. But if you just factor it and solve it, it goes a lot quicker. So if you subtract x squared, you get a negative x squared. Do you want to factor something with a negative x squared? No. So that's why my brain always goes to keeping a positive x squared. But if you do it with a negative x squared, it should be perfectly fine. You should get the same answer. Yeah. What's up, Cal?
Do we have to, so that, is that the answer, or? Do
No, what you would do from here, Cal, is you would either factor this to x plus 4, x plus 2, and you'd solve each of those pieces separately, or you can plug it into the quadratic formula and do the quadratic formula. We're going to skip that. We're not going to get to an answer because I want to save time to get to the next part of our lesson. Okay? Alright, so let's go talk about the discriminant. So within the quadratic formula lies what we call the discriminant. B squared minus 4ac. That piece under the radical. What we're going to do with that is we're going to do the same thing we did on our graphing calculators the other day. When we did, if it hits the x-axis twice, it's 2 real. Hits it once, it's 1 real. It doesn't hit it all, it's too complex, right? We can do the same thing without using our calculators by using b squared minus 4ac. Because if I take the square root of a negative number, what happens to it? The square root of a negative number.
Positive. What? Error?
What happened? You get an imaginary number, right? We just saw that. So if you get b squared minus 4ac, that discriminant, if it comes out to a negative, you get two complex solutions because it'd be imaginary, right? If it's positive, you get two real solutions because it's just numbers, right? Like the first example we did. You get numbers, you get two different answers. And if it equals 0, you're going to get one real solution because the square root of 0 is 0. And if I add 0 or subtract 0, does it change anything? No, so I get one answer, so I get one real solution. Now, do you need to know where they come from? No. Can you use your calculator still on a test to figure out what type of solutions you get? Yes. But you also have the choice now of using the discriminant. So let's practice it a couple times and I'll hand the homework out. So, use the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, to tell how many real and distinct roots we have. So if I have this first equation, I take my b value, negative 12, and I square it. Minus 4ac. Take your discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. I get 144 minus 144. I get 0. So by looking at the rules I just saw, we just talked about, if the discriminant is 0, what type of solution should I have? I should have one real solution. Real solution. Okay, let's try another one. Negative 18 squared minus 4ac. Well, negative 18 squared is this is 15, 16, 17,
324.
324.
No, so smart.
Minus 4 times 1 times negative 81.
Didn't think he would.
So we get minus a negative, which makes it positive. I believe it's 324 again, right?
Yeah.
So we get 648. That is a positive number. When I get a positive number on my discriminant, I get two real solutions. Okay, and last one really quick. B squared, 6 squared, minus 4ac. So I get 36 minus 144. I get negative 108.
Two complex solutions.
I would get two complex solutions. Guys, remember the word complex is the same as imaginary. Sometimes they'll say two imaginary solutions. Alright, so you can either use your calculator, right? Plot the graphs, see where they hit the x-axis, or you can now use your discriminant to tell that as well. Alright, any questions? Swipe up, subscribe.
Call me on
How do I
Do!